on my
when I
mind
go
as soon as
to
I
my
woke up.
friends for a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on. I don't expect them to tell me to leave him. Girl, you can't even leave your own.
And would you believe me if I told you I got this Run DMC shirt on clearance at Target?
Oh, you should just leave him. That's toxic. You're so much happier without him. No, I'm not. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And you're a fucking hypocrite too. I'm not listening to that shit. Tell me to leave him all you want, but I'm not doing that if, girl, you don't even leave yours for the sins he commits against you on a daily basis. Girl, I'm not leaving mine. We're just gonna have to, silently judge each other, you know? Silently hate each other's significant others because, girl, I'm not leaving him, you're not leaving yours. That's not what I came to you for. I came to you because we both got some issues. And I just needed someone who's as fucked up as me to listen to me vent and rant about all this shit, because if I were to talk to somebody who isn't as fucked up as me, I would be even more judged, and that's not what I'm looking for either. So try me. I am translucent, alabaster, pale, the color of sickly death, all happiness and life draining from your body on a regular basis, in the winter especially. So excuse the hell out of me if I use a little beige or tan and violently blend until this shit blends into my
Truth
skin.
of the matter
And I
is,
don't
this
look
time
like
around,
me,
I
but
did get
I
my
do look at
foundation
natural
in a
color
shade
from
that
my
was
white
too dark, but we're gonna roll with it.
I'm not gonna go walking around out here looking like a fucking dementor. Like, I just have no soul. And when I don't have to. No.
And that's why this Snapchat filter is the Snapchat filter I have felt most represented by.
Good morning. Let me back up. Here I am. Woo! With the lungs of an 80-year-old that smokes 2 packs a day. We're here. The light coming in that way looks terrible. I don't give a rat's ass. Hello. Good morning. I want to talk about a subject that's been on my mind a lot. And that subject is fathers, or the lack thereof. In high school, I remember speaking with my father once. And I remember he told me that he never called me because I never called him. And I remember telling him in response, I never called you because you never called me. I think we were lost in translation. My dad went on to say that if I don't reach out to him, that's representative to him that I don't want a relationship with him, and so he shouldn't reach out to me, which is fucking hilarious, because I told him the same shit. I told him, when you don't reach out to me, it makes me feel as though you don't want to talk. You don't want a relationship with me, so I don't reach out to you. I don't feel brave enough to put my foot forward to reach out to my father, when my father doesn't even reach out to me. And my father always reminded me growing up, you're the child, I'm the parent. And I think it's funny that he was always so quick to remind me of that fact, but always so slow to remind him of that fact. Yes, he's the parent, I'm the child. That dynamic doesn't constitute to me that I should be the one reaching out to him. That doesn't... There's a certain parent-child dynamic that's lacking between my father and I. But I don't see the child, or the adult child even, being the one that should reach out to their parent. I don't see it as their duty, their responsibility. kids who grow up without one parent or both parents or whatever their situation may be already have so many responsibilities and duties on them. From the time they're growing up to the time they're already grown, they have so much. How you're raised influences so much of who you are. And it's hard to get lost in that in the day-to-day. You don't see it in the minuscule, seemingly meaningless little actions and motions we go through every day, going to school, doing this, doing that, going to work, playing games, whatever kids and adults do. We don't see the big picture when we're in the midst of what is creating the big picture. But childhood influences who you are as an individual. How you're raised in those formative years determines so much. And so much of these questions you have in your adulthood, you can trace back to things in your childhood and be like, oh, that's why I do this, that's why I'm like that, that's why I behave this way in personal relationships. If you take the time to sit back and look, you can see some connections, you can make some patterns, and then hopefully from there work out the character flaws you have now and make your life a little easier for yourself and others. I think that's something my dad never did. And it's not the same for everyone, but for me, sometimes I cry. Just randomly thinking about my dad, I'll cry. And I'm the one in my family who is always saying, I don't need a father. You know, I don't need both of my parents. I don't need that. Kids don't need that. That's an old idealistic view. I don't need both parents. Kids don't need both parents. There's many different kinds of families, many different ways of being brought up. But as I get older, just in general, I'm learning more about myself and releasing some of the things that I believed as a child because I'm opening my eyes as an adult and understanding that a lot of things I believed as a child weren't true. They were things I believed in because of other things I heard or saw. They were things I believed in because it's how I made sense of the world. But now that I'm older and have a more refined worldview and I understand things more and I've experienced a lot more things, I can see the real truth in a lot more things rather than just viewing things through child eyes. And part of me wonders if I've been truthful with myself and others in saying that I truly feel I don't need both parents. The fact that I cry just when a thought of my dad crosses my mind tells me right there that there's unresolved things that I haven't confronted, feelings I haven't confronted, feelings I haven't expressed to him or to myself or to others, things I haven't owned up to. Growing up in my household, my mom would say things about my dad. My mom has a lot of resentment for my dad. Growing up, it's hard to put myself back in that mindset of a younger person, of a child, of what I thought when my mom would say all these things about my father. When I was younger, I knew the things she was saying were wrong. I knew they were bad things. Like, I knew she was talking shit. Like, I knew that much. But I didn't know why. And I felt like she had a reason. I felt like she had a reason. I didn't know what that reason was. I didn't know all the meat in that sandwich between my mother and my father. But I had enough mental maturity to understand that there was something that had happened between my parents. There was a reason why my mom said horrendous things about my dad. And there was a reason my dad said horrendous things about my mom on the off chance I would speak to him. And we're all humans. We all have certain emotions about certain things. We all go through things and process things different ways. And it's hard. because it can be so damaging to the child's self-image and to the child's image of their parent if one of the parents is talking a lot of mess on them, saying a lot of things about them. For me personally, it was hard for me to form my own opinion on either of my parents because of what I would hear about them from each other. I would hear such bad things about both of them that it was hard for me to form my own image of them. And on top of that, they both had different images of me. Not to necessarily say they had bad images of me as their daughter, but they both had different images of me and where I was to go in life. So then it was hard for me to develop my own self-image of myself. That left me feeling pretty fucking lost throughout my time growing up. I still feel lost on an average day. I'm still figuring it out. It's strange because for a long time I didn't know how to feel about my parents. I didn't know how to feel about my mom. I didn't know how to feel about my dad. And to me that's strange because they're my parents. Well, what do you mean you don't know how to feel about them? You love them. They're your parents. I didn't know how to feel about my parents. I didn't know whether I loved them or liked them. Something else my dad always told me was you can love someone but not like them. Which is, I attained that is true. Eventually I realized that other people's words and opinions don't matter as much as my own when it comes to identifying a situation for myself. Even if it's my parents' words or opinions, even if it's my parents' words or opinions on themselves or others or me or whoever the fuck else. First step is listening to everyone around you, soaking it in. Second step is listening to yourself and thinking, okay, how do I feel about this? Now that I've heard different things from different people, now that I've seen different things, now that I've experienced it for myself, how do I feel about this person or this situation? How do I feel? So how everyone else feels, how do I feel? Another thing that I only came to a realization about probably last week when my mother and I were talking about it is that both of my parents grew up with two parents. My dad had some issues in his family and his household. But both of my parents had both of their parents. And my mom was mentioning that to me, that she doesn't understand how I feel or what I've gone through or how having one parent has affected me. She doesn't understand the implications of that because it never happened to her. She never experienced it. She never went through it. It's hard to feel the full scope of things when you haven't gone through them. And I told her, Mom, I've never thought about that. She said, yeah, I never intended, she told me, I never intended for you to have only one parent. I never intended to be a single parent. I wouldn't have been a single parent if I could have chosen it. I would have gone back and not been with your father because she didn't want to be a single parent. She grew up with her mom and her dad there in the house, her whole bringing up. And that's what she wanted for her children because that's what she experienced. And, you know, and things changed, things happened, the tides turned, she was a single parent. And I told her, I never thought of that, Mom. I never thought about that. I never thought about that perspective of it. And that's partly, I'm sure, where some of her resentment comes from, her being left alone as well to raise these kids. That's something else I had to realize. Another fucking thing was that for a long time my mom would say things that would make me think that she didn't want my sister and I, she did not love my sister and I. But that can't be furthest from the truth. My mom has sacrificed so much for my sister and I to have the best lives that we could, given our circumstances or resources. My mom didn't not want us. She didn't want the situation all of us were in. She didn't want to be a single parent. She wanted to do it on her own. She didn't want her daughters to have no father. She didn't want to raise us all alone and have the full brunt of the financial responsibility and everything else. That's a lot for one person to take on. That's why two people make a baby. Two people should raise a baby. But it doesn't always work out that way. You have to make do with what you got. I didn't realize that until I was an adult. I didn't realize that until I was older, until I spoke with her, until I had seen things, experienced things, and was able to piece it all together. I understand my mom's view on the divorce, on her family, a lot more than I did 10 years ago. Unfortunately, I feel like I understand my dad a lot less than I did 10 years ago, and I feel like 10 years from now, I'm gonna understand him even less still. I don't talk to him. He has my phone number blocked. I tried to reach out to him, even though I feel like it's not my responsibility to do so. I tried, and he has my phone number blocked. So, cheers. My stepdad's the shit, though.
Gotta show love to the step parents that step in and step up. Thank you, God, for all that I have. Grant me the patience to accept when you say no and the courage to move when you say yes. Amen.